we were kind of open to what, figuring out what the movie would be. And that we ended up getting and only interviewing women, I think was a big part of the story taking on a life of its own, was that we realized that we had these powerful women, you know, whose stories hadn't really been shared, or, giving them a voice became a big part of what our mission behind the film was.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang.
My name's Chance Foreman, filmmaker. I've been working on a lot of documentary projects. I like to work on things that have social impact or purpose, or, a driving force for good. And I've worked on a bunch of films like Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, or some Netflix documentaries that have been out there. And I live in Venice, and, I just try to find projects that are moving us forward positively in the world. And Grant's an old friend of mine as well. And, that was part of how we got started on this film. But, he's a good dude also, has been, working on good things for a while as well.
Nice.
Thank you. Well, yeah, me and Chance have known each other for about 15 years in Venice. And I've just always been kind of try to be active in the community and social justice, and lead with my heart and find where I can contribute into the world, making the world a better place. And always been kind of connected to the to nature and the earth and animals. So being around Mustangs was kind of a organic process, or when I heard about their story and wanted to do something to kind of tell the world what's going on.
We're here today particularly to talk about your guys' new film called Dance of the Wild. What is the thing that drew you to make a film about wild horses?
Well, I let Grant start because this all came from you, basically.
Well, it happened during the pandemic in 2020. I was living in Topanga Canyon, California, and I met some people. And I just found out, they were telling me what was going on with the Mustangs and how they're being treated and rounded up and sold, at auction or to kill pens, and being shipped to on big trucks down in Mexico and then being processed for dog food. My mind was just like, what in the world? Are you serious? Wild horses, like this beautiful mystical creature that we've all come to associate with, that can't be, and so that kind of set the seed for the inspiration to wanting to kind of bring to light this story and this plight, and also get into the healing components that horses, and particularly Mustangs, have, and what they can teach us through their sensory and through their wisdom and their sentient energy. And then I met then Chance came to full circle. Sorry, 2024. Living in Colorado, I moved up to area called Pagosa Springs, and living up in the mountains and horse country, and started being around horses a lot more, meeting all these wonderful, people who are protectors of horses and the Mustangs, and stewards and stewardesses of the earth. And I was like, all right, I'm full circle, because nothing really happened for all those years, and said, okay, I guess it's time, and reached out to Chance, and he was free. And so he came out, and the rest is history. I'll let Chance take it over from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a wild experience to sort of get this whole thing rolling too. Cause, Grant like hit me up with this idea and I was like, looking for something to do as well. So I went out. We first were doing a small project out in Atlanta. And then after that, we went to Pagosa and um, it was kind of interesting because we just had this idea, we wanted to make this film on, uh, well, first protecting, the Mustangs, bringing awareness to their story, and then reconnecting people to, our lost connection with horses in a way, and their connection to nature and how they can reconnect us through, healing and our, human horse connection that we've lost. So, um, we basically we didn't have any interviews set up. We didn't have really kind of like a plan other than we wanted to do this. And we're in horse country, basically. We're in the,
Yeah.
middle of this story. And so, um, I think it was, your neighbor, right? Was the first interview? Is it Susanna? So she's from Germany and she's a natural
Susanna.
horseman trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was his neighbor. And so we interviewed her first. And then we met someone, I think, at the local coffee shop because me and Grant would go every morning. First thing, grab coffee. What was it called? Sacred Grounds, I think, or
Higher Grounds.
Higher Grounds.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
enough.
higher
Could be
Grounds.
another name for another dock or coffee
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think wasn't it somebody in there had told you about Brittany, right? And had connected you, and sort of through her, kind of like it snowballed a little bit through one person, and then she led us to all of these other amazing, powerful women. Kind of each person kind of gave us, a little bit of a direction, and the film sort of took on its life of its own through that. And I think a little bit of the story changed, the message, the purpose, like as we got more into this with each woman, and we the journey kind of like unfolded as we went, which was pretty magical. But,
Yeah, I would say a lot of it was done with a lot of faith. And to echo Chance, he came out. We didn't really have a plan, and I was like, well, I know there's all these people out here. I've run into some of them. I know they're here, and so we just started putting the word out and the energy out, and one thing led to another. And Brittany who was executive director of Great Escape Mustangs. We connected with her, and she, you know, was entrenched in the circle, and she was able to connect with other people. Some of the people we had already reached out to, and we were waiting to hear back from. And some of it was just going online and reaching out to people. Um, yeah, but it happened real quick, and I think within 3-4 weeks we shot the whole film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the majority, like pretty much everything except for a little bit in Malibu, which we did once we got back. But yeah, the majority of it was like, we did like intense, like every day we were driving, filming, driving, filming, driving, and then doing like multiple interviews and shooting, going out to, wild horse herds and doing equine therapists and rescuers. And it was very full, very, very exciting, fun shoot,
Yeah. And then there's also magical experiences. We were on our way, and we were kind of ending our Colorado shoot. We had one shoot set up in Arizona with a horse healer who does medicine healing with her horses, named Michelle Peterson. And on the way out there, we saw this magical herd on the middle of near Shiprock, and got some great footage. And
we were
we
like,
pulled
"Arr!"
over, we pulled over, and they kind of like came closer and closer to us, and were just like kind of giving us a show for about hour and a half until we had to like hit the road to, uh, get in town before dark. But that was magical too. So a lot of things like that would happen along the way as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was cool too because the mountain sort of behind the horses had like ears or the mountain looked like it had horse ears, kind of like it was sort of this little mystical. So you had all the horses here lined up, and then there's this mountain behind it that looked like kind of a monument to horses. So yeah, it was very magical.
Very picturesque, yeah. And then the other wild horse sanctuary we went to was outside of about an hour and a half outside of Boulder. which was part of the Great Escape Mustang Sanctuary. And so we were able to uh, be, hands on with them where they brought us there. I think it's probably a few thousand acres and the herd's maybe 50 to 100 or something like
Something like
that.
that.
Yeah, but they're very like open, and we just were able to kind of be inside the herd. They accept you, and if you bring in the right energy and the
Right.
respect and the presence and the being grounded. And so that was wonderful too. Being
Yeah.
able to literally be in the middle of a herd physically, energetically, and you interact with them. That
Yeah.
was very special too. So
Yeah. At
Yeah, and
sunset
the
too.
visuals are gorgeous in the video. So
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was such a fun part, was just getting to play with all that imagery, and the the horses, I think, because our focus was to try to like bring a spiritual connection outside of the, kind of protection element. So we wanted to sort of do a lot of imagery that was, more, eyes and parts of the horses, and try to get a little more of an intimate connection to it versus, a lot of just sort of horse shots. But we wanted to try to play with it a little more artistically too.
yeah, and that reminds me too. You know, we came up with some natural resistance about the Mustangs, about what was going on with them, the herd management, the way the, BLM was doing it. A lot of
yeah,
people were like, "Oh, I don't really want to get into that. I don't want to be political." There's been a lot of energy about that, and a lot, even movies and docs and things like that. So a lot of people were like, we just want to be like positive and talk about results, going forward, and solutions. And so that also helped taper the movie into more of a, positive oriented, what are the Mustangs here to share with us, and the spiritual messages. We still had to touch a little bit because we do want to, educate the people on what the reality is, but we try to like hit on that and then move on,
Sure.
yeah,
The focus
So,
is
yeah.
different. We're focused
Yeah.
in a different
yeah,
direction than the problem. The problem's
Yeah.
like is there, but the solutions and the connection to our, natural world and horses, and that whole story was more the focus, you know. Yeah.
yeah. And I don't think you can really talk about the Mustangs without at least touching on that. But
Yeah.
there are really high emotions, and I think that there are also a lot of people who do have the Mustang's best interest at heart, but don't fully understand the situation. So a lot of times they will think the people who have Mustangs, like we're the ones going out and like gathering these horses and taking them into our homes, which isn't the case at all. But I love that you showed all the people who are helping the Mustangs once they're rounded up, by no choice that any of us have. It's a government issue.
Hmm.
Taking these Mustangs and then showing what they're doing with them in their lives and how they're caring for these Mustangs.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really also what is this new role essentially, um, for horses in a world where we're not using them to, build things or to, go to war, whatever it was, like the reasons that horses were such an integral part of society. So now it's like, where's their role? And I think that healing element is really become kind of there's, many uses and connections, but like as a utility, horses healing wise has become a much bigger and much more relevant, in today's society kind of role. So
At the beginning of your film, you guys basically say we set out to talk about protecting wild horses, and then we ended up kind of learning, uncovering so much more. What are some of the things that made you guys change direction, or some of the things that you found that made you realize these are the aspects that we really want to highlight and focus on?
well, I think part of it was just the natural, kind of the organic element of the story leading itself from our first interview, and through our interview process, we kind of learned more about, I think, ourselves, about the way horses can guide us back to nature through, you know, these like healing practices. But I think it was really just, we first started off with we were going to interview everybody. We had no kind of concept really of if we were going to just pick a direction. We were kind of open to figuring out what the movie would be. And that we ended up getting and only interviewing women, I think was a big part of the story taking on a life of its own, was that we realized that we had these powerful women, you know, whose stories hadn't really been shared, or, giving them a voice became a big part of what our mission behind the film was. So I think that element was a big part, like discovering these voices and what people were doing, and then how that changed our perspective of, of course, horses, nature, and our connection and their role. So it was a big journey of learning for us as well through the process.
Yeah, I would say, each person we interviewed, it was like this great opening, unraveling of, really beautiful, like, discovery for us. And, it was very emotional too, which was, I think, kind of led the film because with each person we'd interview, a lot of them would like share some personal stories. Some of them we couldn't even put on the film because it was, personal. They would tell us outside the camera,
Yeah.
of their journeys of healing, whether, emotionally, physically through, uh, their trauma. And, it was just such an honor and that people felt comfortable to open up with us after we'd, you know, didn't even know them and were coming in with cameras and,
Yeah.
for so many people to trust us with, on an intimate level. And, and then through that, it just became like really about, getting in touch with our hearts more. And I think everyone's always on a healing journey, so, us as, the filmmakers too, and the person who directed the interviews, her name's Julianne Reynolds. She was on a physical healing journey with, cancer and everything.
Mm.
I can say that because she puts that out there too. So, we're all on these like our own healing journeys as well. And, so it felt very apparent, organic that this is all about a healing journey.
Mhm.
And the journey back to like this, centering of, our souls back in harmony with, the natural world and with the earth and with each other and, with horse becoming our guide, with especially the Mustang who had, has been through this horrendous, wild journey that they've been through
Mm.
generations. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful angle that you guys took on it. There's a lot of people who still don't know about wild horses, like that we actually do still have wild horses in America. And then on top of that, so many that haven't been able to experience what it's like being in the presence of a Mustang when you have kind of opened yourself up to see what's possible with them. You guys said that you kind of learned and it affected you as you went along the way. What were some of those moments?
Well, I think one of my favorite, I guess this is kind of a through line that we had happen throughout the whole kind of process, was the way that the horses would react to us actually when we came into to shoot them was really, I think, welcoming. Like I felt like they had this understanding that we were there to help them. And most of the people that we would come in to film their horses with them, they would say, I've never seen them act like this with people. They're usually, really aggressive or scared, and they're like, they love you guys. Like, and we had this throughout the whole shoot. Even I think the wild horse herd, once they kind of, took a little bit for them to come in, they were so interested in us. The whole herd was surrounding us, and I couldn't even get, far enough away to get wide shots that I wanted to get because they would follow you around. So I think that was just such an interesting thing to see, this part of them realizing that we were there for them and being interested, like somehow connected to that that our mission was to help them, and somehow they knew. And it was, yeah, it kept being like that throughout the whole shoot. But yeah, it was just one of them, one of the things that
Yeah.
Well,
that was
thanks. Yeah.
affected me.
Yeah, for me, I mean, definitely what Chance said. Yes, for sure, all of that. And the lessons that we were being taught as well from all the horsewomen who were, sharing their, you know, experiences and learning about the herd and how they their heart field and how you got to really be present, not be in fear and but just be completely present, that those were great lessons. Also to have boundaries, it's okay to have boundaries. Um to, you know, include each other, but also to have a firm no, that's okay, so those were some great lessons. Yeah, and just the healing, being able to like get close to, such a giant, powerful, strong, wild animal, you don't it's unheard of, you can't get near any other animal. I mean, obviously there's some great wildlife photographers in Africa who get close to, some wild animals but, horses are also have the potential to, they can kick you and you're dead, they can choose not to be with you and run away, they could choose to come close and feel they trust you and you're calm and your central nervous system is regulated. So then they feel in a safe space. So, um, it's amazing that they will allow you to enter their space, you know,
Yeah.
to that is just wild. That whole concept to me, I'm still grasping that and what that means. And they'll only do that when you are present and regulated and calm and, grounded too as well. So,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
pretty incredible, like Chance pointed out, just how they can sense your intentions. I've definitely had
Yeah.
some very clear experiences with my horses like that, where they're like, oh, they did not, they did not like that. My first Mustang mare, the vet came one of the first times and she just lost it. And the vet's like, this animal's dangerous. So it is pretty crazy how they can sense, and almost magical, how they can sense your intentions and what you're there for and react accordingly because of that. Was there anything you guys would do to prepare before you went in with the horses to kind of ground yourselves?
It's a great
Not,
question.
well, not,
Listen to Van
not,
Morrison. Just joking.
yeah. Van Morrison was in the morning routine, but
Yeah.
I don't know. We were so on the run that it was kind of just like all day, till we'd sleep and get up and drive there. And, it was kind of, I felt like we were just on this mission the whole time. So we were kind of dropped into that experience every day. So, yeah, I feel like we set the intention at the beginning of shooting the film and we were just in that for, the whole process. So it was, I feel like now whenever I look around and I see horses, I'm like, there are horse friends everywhere, it's, and it's just, and I never really had a history with horses, but now I feel very connected. Honestly,
Mm.
anytime I see them or I'm around them, it's a whole different perspective now.
It was kind of magical because, like Chance said, we were always in that space, but I felt like each time we drove up to a new location with a new herd and a new uh, person that we were interviewing, it was like we get out of the car and it was just like there was that moment where you're just like, and part of it was the journey because you're driving through these beautiful mountains of Colorado or through New Mexico or, down to Arizona. But like we shot all over some beautiful places. So part of it was like that drive time, which like got you in that
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like calm, centered state. And then when you got out, you're in this, you're like, you can
Go, go,
feel
go.
yeah, you can go. We have the equipment, but you also feel like the vibration, like you've entered a sacred space, and you got
Hmm.
to really respect that space of the herd, the horses, and the caretaker. These amazing horsewomen that were holding that space. So it was really just coming with like a lot of like honor, and humility and respect, I think was, some of the feelings I had. Um,
Yeah, I think also what was interesting is I feel like as we went, we kind of learned a little bit about how to read or I guess understand the horses' expressions and what they meant a little bit, like blinking or like if they'd pull away, or there were like little subtle things that you know we would learn through interviewing our different subjects that once we'd get into the horses world, it became even more easier and easier to kind of like understand where they were right away, or whether they were afraid or not or interested, or and that I think helped a lot as we went along, because at first it was definitely a little intimidating getting into these you know world with these big animals and not really understanding it. And by the end, I felt like I could kind of walk in and just, I know this one's interested, that one's chilling. They're kind of like, well, who's this person? Stay away. So I think that was really cool progression throughout.
Yeah, and I think it took a lot of trust too, and I
Yeah.
think some people taught us that too. You gotta like trust the horse, trust yourself, because if you're scared, that's they're gonna pick up on that, and that's not gonna create good energy. So, but yeah, a lot of trust, and like Chance said, that in the beginning it was like, well, we're around these giant horses, and we're not horse people, and then being around the wild Mustangs, whoa, we're in a wild herd right now, and something ticks them off, they could start to fight each other, trample, or you get in the middle, you can get,
Yeah.
Sure.
you can get accidentally even hurt by just being in the middle of the herd. So, but it got to a point where we just, I don't know, there's just so much like love for these animals and what they represented, and I don't know, getting to know their history and everything they've gone through. I just felt like you felt like such a connection that there was so much love there, and that became like turned into trust, and then you know felt safe.
Yeah. Was there anything that especially surprised you along the way as you started out just thinking you're going to talk about the wild horse situation?
I mean, I felt like I was surprised at every interview, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moved. Felt like I was brought to tears. I learned something new. Like each person had so much wisdom and knowledge, and just, it was so much. I think for me, one of the really interesting things though was the mirroring element that, in the healing process, how horses can, mirror back your emotional states, and witnessing that in some of because we filmed a couple of those sessions, and to like witness that actual happening isn't crazy, because I hear about it and you're like, sure, okay, but to see it in action was magical. It really was.
Yeah, I think mirroring, and then there's also this concept where they can transmute your trauma even on a physical level. We didn't really get into that as much with the people that we interviewed, but there's like a deeper mirrorings part of that. But they're able to actually like psychically, instinctually, like because they're so in tune with whether it's their heart feel or compassion or psychic abilities, or their nervous system is so sensitive that they're able to really understand what another human being is feeling and mirror it, and even trans you know there's this the concept that they can transmute it, like take it on and take it out of you, like a shaman almost. So that part is like wild to think about that. And yeah, and the whole nervous system thing, because they breathe slower, and so your heart supposedly syncs up with them. Your heart starts to beat slower, and so you just really really kind of get into this deep state of relaxation almost. um and that part really surprised me too, because so much is connected as we're getting to learning more about our nervous system, our central nervous system, so much dis-ease in our world that's, getting back to this calm state is, creating balance in our lives. And we were able to do that by they're letting us do that by connecting with us and co-regulating with us, which was amazing to be a
Yeah,
part of, physically to feel.
the whole heart field, uh, and being able to regulate your, through just stepping into these larger magnetic heart fields was also something I actually felt too, because we'd go through a lot of stress and figuring out different shoots and all this stuff, and it was pretty interesting to get into these horses worlds and shoot in that space and like actually feel kind of like we were all kind of got a little more grounded and able to work together and stuff in those situations that I've been in before where people get all stressed and stuff. And I think that was really interesting part. Just a side element of shooting with horses was that our whole crew, I think, was affected by that as we were working.
Did you guys feel like you were able to personally feel a lot of these concepts that the women were sharing with you in your time with the horses?
I'd say so. I think less, maybe a little bit less, just because for me, because I was directing and doing the
Yeah.
cinematography and organizing. I was kind of like running around constantly. So, but I definitely think everybody had connections to this in some form throughout the process, and I definitely felt it myself. I mean, I know me and Grant talked about it, different times, being like, we had these moments or feelings of like connection that you can't really explain.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had it was profound every way. Obviously, when there was, you're so busy and, working a shoot and trying to figure out, where to be, what time, and what we need for the shoot, and, a lot of chaos. So we had to like, get that out of the way, and so we could be calm.
Yeah.
But once we finally got there, and chances obviously behind the camera, doing 100 things. But there was some times during and after the interviews where we were like able to just be, and in those times you're able to feel, feel the energy and all the teachings. And it wasn't like we didn't really partake in the healing sessions because we had other people doing it, because we were, chances filming, and I'm they're organizing stuff too. So we didn't personally partake in like one-on-one healing sessions, which
Yeah.
if we had more time we would have. But it was
Yeah,
like
that would have
we're
been
in,
great.
we're out. We shot all
Great to
day.
document. Yeah.
The sun's setting. All the equipment has to load in the car, and then we got to
Yeah.
drive 3 hours back to
Yeah.
home or hotel or wherever we got to go. We're all hungry, and so unfortunately we didn't get to participate as much as in the grounding as we would have liked to.
Do you guys remember, or what kind of caused you to decide like we're going to focus more on the healing aspect of Mustangs and how Mustangs are helping humans rather than, the big issues surrounding Mustangs, which there's, lots to talk about there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what kind of drew you in that new, different direction?
I think the real point was, I think we really kind of wanted that initially in general, was to focus less on the problem, less on like the issues. I think there have been a lot of films and there's a lot of other, people talking about uh, the political side, the problem, all the things that are wrong, with horses, and we really wanted to focus on a positive direction and more of a how do you fall in love with horses so that we can protect them, a little less of the there's all these bad things happening so we need to protect them kind of message. And so I think
Yeah.
originally that was like kind of the guiding kind of element was, let's make this film, but let's focus on the spiritual connection to nature, to our human, partnership, and then to this healing element. And I think also, having Julianne with us and she ran all the interviews. She did the interviews, and she was going through, like Grant said, her own healing journey. I think that was a big driving force as well, was her connection to what she was going through, and then talking to these women, and all of them have gone through different various elements of, things have happened in their lives that they needed to heal. And so there was this connection through, I think, all the interviews and through her and through the different stories we had that really kind of ended up driving that. But, at the very beginning, we wanted to give this a much more of a, yeah, like more of a personal connection film than like a political, uh, this is a problem movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can kind of make change two ways. You can call out everything that's wrong with the system, or you can try to inspire, or you can try to inspire people to kind of see things and really make changes through the inspiration, through through messages of beauty and love and healing and belonging. um you know so I think that became more of the focus. And these issues are very complex too,
Yeah.
and to get in there and get into like the deep anger and
Yeah.
political and go to kill pens. And there's been movies on that subject too. And so, um, there's, I think, a lot more to be told in this other direction as well.
Yeah, I think also we just didn't want to, we kind of wanted to play like, what is something that everybody can connect with, and that everybody, regardless of where you come from, who you are, people love horses, And so we wanted to just stick with that point. It doesn't really, and then where do horses connect us, and why are they magical? What is their purpose, and how do they, lead us back to nature, which is essentially one of the things that, when you look at most of society and a lot of the stuff that's, you could just come back to nature, and most of those things are fixed. So we wanted to just sort of focus on the positive side of all of that, and hopefully help people fall in love with horses, so we can, protect them, and people can go out and have more fun, and, get inspired to, do a equine therapy session, or go for a ride, or just go hang out in a wild herd and see what that's like.
Yeah, it's interesting. You could talk about two things. You could talk about all the pesticides that are in the food, how we're being poisoned by, these companies promoting and selling poisonous goods. Or we can talk about all these healthy organic foods and what they benefit you and your body. And that the more you
Right.
focus on that, it seems like the more things can shift that way. But, you know,
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
I
So,
love that. And I love that angle. And it's mentioned in the documentary, and you mentioned it a little also, Chance, that horses have kind of lost their place in our world. We don't use them for transportation. We don't use them to farm our food anymore. And something that's really stood out to me is, I think that a big part of why we still have horses in our life is because, yeah, we're doing, like, we don't have to worry about, are we going to eat tonight anymore? But a lot of people are really suffering a lot in their mental
Mhm,
and emotional worlds. And
mhm,
so I have definitely found that I think that's a place where the horses are willing to walk with us through that and to share their
mhm,
wisdom with us. And I think you guys probably both experienced some of that, just some of the lessons that they have to share in such a profound and clear way. Like, it can become very confusing in our world today, but when you're with a
Mhm.
horse, in my experience, it's become very simple and problems become clearer as well.
mhm. And there's that
Absolutely.
sense of belonging too. The herd, once you're part of the herd, you belong. And the break in belonging that everyone's experiencing in our
Right.
society, especially in this country, because we're already so fragmented in our culture, it's even
Yeah,
harder. Who do you belong to? And then people are gasping for things and, you know, and can't find anything,
right.
grasping for,
Yeah.
anything, and so that part is really profound too, and beautiful to feel that you do belong. We are all part of the herd, and we're the herd in the earth, in humanity, within the horses. Horses are also the wild horses teach us that we do all belong to
Yeah, I
each
thought it was
other.
really
Yeah.
that was interesting too that the so many of the things that they're talking about horses doing to heal or feel better or to like survive are so much of stuff that we do. And personality wise, horses and humans, we're very much the same. And so like getting into, all the stuff they've been through and all the stuff that we've been through and like how similar that is was really fascinating as well.
Yeah, clearing our generational, you know, trauma together. And then
Yeah.
and also learn about the horses and the wild horses, their trauma, their generational trauma now that they've been having for the last, you know, 100 plus years since they've lost their role in our society, and how many of them have, just been given up on and, you know, killed. I mean, obviously the numbers are. I think there's 3 million wild horses running around, in the early 1900s. So, and they were down to 50,000. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
50, 60, something in that area. But it's going fast and they're that is a real worry, if we don't do something, I think now that we may end up not having wild herds in this country, because land is going pretty quick and there's a lot of misinformation around whether they're, feral or destructive to the land and that they need to be taken off. And when in fact they're really benefits to the ecosystem and to land and they've been here and they're part of this culture, this connection to the land in the United States is it's really deep. So, it's that's part of the story as well.
Yeah, and I think another piece, and maybe if you guys saw any of this, is just the idea of freedom. We hold it in such high regard in our country. It's one of our founding principles. And I think the wild horses really represent that idea that freedom's still possible in our world. And so even the physical loss of them, but also all the principles that are lost behind them if it's not something that we value anymore.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely the metaphor for that is very, very strong. Um, the feeling of freedom and wanting to just embody or at least experience what that means, that essence of being free. And a wild horse is our symbol for that.
Yeah, I think Dance of the Wild really, if you were to break down that, is really ultimately freedom, is to be able to dance wild, dance free, dance in yourself and nature and dance, that dance of the wild is really freedom. So ultimately that's, what we all want too, in the end. So it's a big part of the message of the film ultimately is, yeah,
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah. So the metaphor of the wild horse. Yeah, it's so interesting because we all grow up, and especially young women or girls, because the horse is their magical fairy creature that they
Yeah.
energetically, it's like boys usually like cars, or trucks, or and but the horse universally is always this magical, fairy like, mystical, transcendental, creature that could take us to lands or realms or that we can't take ourselves,
Mm.
through, guiding us or getting on their back and then, you know, carrying us, so that metaphysical, metaphorical, that they've always been our guide. We've always had that mysticism for them as the reverence for them as a
Mhm.
creature, as a being, as a mystical being, um, to teach us. And then we've lost that reverence. As a society, obviously, some people still hold that reverence, but you know, why did we lose that reverence? Because we put our trust in movies, or
Yeah.
computer screen or
It's you
money or,
guys. No,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're hypocritical. Everyone,
no, I'm just
everyone to
kidding.
some, everyone to some degree, there's
Yeah.
hypocrisy in everything we do, because we're trying to
Yes.
figure out how do we still survive and live, in this
Yeah.
world
Well,
we've created.
yeah. And even that,
Mm.
it's not that movies are inherently bad. I think it's the
Mm.
misbalance that has become part of our lives that we are so focused on the physical consumerism versus having some balance there. You know, of course we need these things. We need homes to live in
Yeah.
and things like that. And then the other thing I thought of is just how that freedom also pertains to our freedom of mind, which is definitely part of when anybody is able to heal themselves, they can kind of get out of the chains that are like holding them in just really bad places in their life. And I think that's something that the horses help us do when we spend time in their presence, is we can kind of have those releases in our mind and find greater clarity so that we aren't so consumed by everything that's wrong and all the bad things in life, but we can open and expand to some of the good things, much like you guys have done with the film, which is, you know, the possibility of all the good in the world.
Yeah. Thanks. I love that. Yeah, one of the other things though, that if you talk about that sacred connection and the was getting a little bit more of the history, Native American, like the way the Native Americans saw horses when they came. They called it this, holy dog or the sky dog or spirit dog, and it was this mystical creature, which I hadn't realized that back then they also revered them as healers, and they were considered, sacred animals, and they were treated very differently. They were more of a partnership than like an ownership, and the idea of this, them being, not from this country and Spanish, the Mustang coming back with the Spanish, um, was not a introduction of a, non-indigenous species, but an actual reintroduction of an indigenous species that had been here. And so their connection to this land is much deeper and longer than people realize. Even if you were to go back to like the whole Orodont, the beginning, and them like crossing the Bering Strait, so it's kind of like a returned home more. And I think if we look at horses in this country as sacred animals that have returned home, instead of looking at them as like feral, invasive species that needs to be gotten rid of, it will change a lot of how we see that connection, that bond, that spiritual, you know, story that they're coming into now in the time of the horse. uh, that Native American story really had an impact on me. Just, seeing them as spiritual animals and connected to the land instead of problems.
What's amazing, just when you're saying all that, popped in my mind is like, for years you would hear about the extinction of animals, or in Africa killing, rhinoceroses or elephants for ivory, or even the game hunting. And you would hear about, but you would never hear about the Mustangs for all those years. Um, it's just interesting how they it tends to get swept under the carpet here, and people are
Yeah.
just not, it's not, publicized, not newsworthy. People don't, aren't educated on it. You would think it would be an all like American, topic
Yeah.
that everyone should be debating and talking about, in
Yeah.
schools or in politics, because it's a very important part of our history, our ecosystem, our country, our, past, our future. And yeah, you would think everyone would want to
Yeah.
know about it and be weigh in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any other animal that's getting rounded up and slaughtered and just, run off the land, most people are outraged by. And
I mean, the
this
dogs, a
is,
lot of people
yeah.
have dog
Right.
shelter, and
They're shipping
nobody,
on
not,
trucks and
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
no kill, yeah, yeah. It just, but I mean, to go back to that again, it boggles my mind that you could treat such a sacred animal with such disdain, like literally like trash, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
If you do have to have herd management, you do have to somehow like manage a herd, a population, they're getting out of hand, you know, rounding up, obviously humanely, adopting them or holding them for adoption, but to be able to be sold for slaughter is just inhumane. That should be that's an easy no brainer to be outlawed. We don't need the
Yeah.
money. They don't need the money. So, you know,
The history is interesting because that is an argument that's made a lot. Like they're not native to the land, they're invasive species and stuff. But I do think even if that were true, that they didn't have an ancient history, which I agree with you. I think that they were here long, long before we have even possibly record of them. But even if that wasn't the case, just the idea that there's these animals now, and what is that saying about us as humanity, dependent on how we choose to treat them and to approach that problem?
I mean, I do love I really like this concept of the reintroduction of an indigenous species. Like we're looking at them as bringing something home. And I think, bringing them home and protecting them you know, a species that needs to be here is part of our culture, part of our history, part of our, like you said, future. And yeah, if we can't protect them, it's really sad that something that connected to us is, so lost in our sphere of influence or just understanding of what's happening to them.
What are some of the ways that making this film and going into this issue and seeing what's happening with wild horses, and maybe especially like places where the wild horses are doing well and serving humans in this way, where they're able to go in and to help people find a clearer path and be able to find peace in this world that can feel pretty intense sometimes? What are some of the ways that this whole process and journey has impacted the two of you?
This has impacted me in a very positive way, where I feel that the message to the film started for me in a small kind of like narrow view of this story. And I think what happened is that I realized that this story is so much more than just horses. It's really about us and like the problems with the horses being rounded up, the problems with most of the things. They're really human problems and things that we've caused or are causing. And so a lot of this for me is like, okay, we're shining this light here, but these issues and these things in the film are actually global, and they're human, and they're nature, and they're, because basically it's who we are as a species, as a world, and how we're all connected, and how losing that connection causes so many of the problems. So ultimately for me it was, you know, really a message of hope, and that regardless of all of the problems and all the crazy stuff in the world, that if we can return to nature, if we can reconnect to our hearts, if we can connect to each other, we're not that different. And I think horses really can lead us in that direction of reconnecting across borders, across lines, across ideological belief systems, and at the end, we're all the same. So I feel like the film process for me was really just rekindling that hope.
I'll agree with you.
I thought you were going to say disagree. I was like, oh, dang.
Well, it came out wrong.
Yeah.
I hard disagree.
I just fully agree that we're, hope is the main word. And, yeah. And I think that's what you're left with at the end of the film, that there is hope because, I think one of our historians said they've been through so much and they're still around, they're still thriving, and look what they've gone through. So there is hope for humanity, for us to, you know, rediscover, our path and our center and our, place in this world. So that's what I'm left with, I think, too.
Yeah. And I really like that you guys highlighted and actually visually showed people that there are still places on this earth that are still have that element of wild. They still have that element of sacredness that is outside the world of just needing more or achievement and accomplishment. A lot of the things that a lot of us in this country and just around the world were kind of raised as the epitome of success, just to see that, there's other people who are stepping away from that, leaning into the natural world and some of those things that we've lost and bringing that, to life for people to see was really beautiful.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. What was your favorite part of the movie?
Oh, my
Did you
favorite part
have
of the
something
movie.
that you loved
I mean,
or
it
stuck
did
out?
stand out when I don't remember who it was, the lady from Mustang Camp. I don't remember her name, but it did stand out when she was like, the horses are acting so different to you guys. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
I love that.
She goes, oh, they love you.
Yeah.
They really like you. They love you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun to see because it is really cool to see how the horses react to different people. And like we kind of talked about, they seem to know intention and purpose why we're there and respond accordingly.
Nice.
It was also really cool to just see some of the sessions that the women you talked to did with people that came to them to see the way the horses made them feel. And it's not anything spectacular per se. Like they're just kind of sitting there. It's not necessarily a lot of talk, but it was neat to see that play out. And you could even tell from the interview that, both of the women who did the sessions, like there was probably some deeper stuff that happened that wasn't necessarily for the public to consume, but that they had experienced with that time with the horses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just like showing people like there's another place of healing that you can go, because I think so many people are just so desperate to be, there's just so much pain and so many mental health struggles out there, to be able to see like there's this space you can enter that, at a minimum will give you a release from everything that you're facing in your life outside of horses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, nice.
Are there any other moments or highlights that you guys want to make sure we talk about? Experiences that maybe we didn't touch on?
I don't know. One of the cool things that I just loved was going out to Patricia's Mustang camp, because I don't know, it was like, what was it, like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive down this single dirt road in the middle of it was New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And there was like we had to drive through like a
northwest corner of New Mexico somewhere.
Yeah.
But
so
there's nothing
middle
there
of nowhere.
at all. Middle of nowhere. That's what they call it. We called it on the film, middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's what she called it too. Yeah.
And they were like, they said that the road might be blocked. We might not be able to get through. And
there was a recent rain, the bridge.
we had to drive through like, we had to drive through a dry lake bed. And then it was like, no service, 2 hours, maybe driving down this road. No idea where we were, if we were in even the right direction. Eventually pull up and there's one building in the middle of nowhere, like actually. And it was an old school, I guess, that they had out there like years ago. And so they now live at this old school, just the two of them. And she rescues Mustangs, and she said she doesn't leave, I think, that place more than 2 times a year. So she basically spends the entire year living out there training Mustangs, and her husband will go into town every once in a while to get food and stuff. But she lives in this world. Like she is, fully like the Mustang camp. And it was really amazing to be in her world and see her interaction. It just, that was a very cool.
And one zebra, Mustang donkeys. And
one zebra, yes.
Burros and one zebra.
Oh, nice.
who sleeps inside in the winter, because zebras are not, they can't adapt to the cold. Horses, they don't have the long hair to adapt to cold winters in North America. So
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. She was great. And I think the school was in the middle of nowhere, because maybe like 60, 70 years ago there was, I don't know, if there's some mines or minerals there, and so some company brought a bunch of people out there, enough to build a school and a temporary village, but there was no more temporary village or houses or anywhere, but the school somehow was left.
And they have an old like a basketball court inside, and a library. Like it was a whole school. It was, it was a really interesting place. And then I mean, I guess everybody's world we got to experience was pretty interesting. Like Mustang Maddie was living in the San Juan Mountains out in Colorado, and she also had a zebra, and she
Camel.
also had a camel who wasn't
Oh,
very
wow.
friendly. He was definitely given like, eyes.
They did not like you guys so
Don't
much.
go by the camel kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
Camel's
great.
like, what about me? Why aren't I in the film? Look at me.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah,
cool looking. I should be the star.
he'd definitely eye
Yeah.
you as you're going by. Like, I don't know what he's thinking. That was fun. The whole shoot was a great experience, exploring this world and getting connected with so many horses and amazing people, and getting to like hold space for these women to share their message, and their voice was really powerful.
Yeah, and I like to say that add to that these women and a lot of other organizations, they are doing this really, really, really difficult work. Spreading the message, trying to save, what's left of the population, trying to save them from slaughter, retraining them, finding them new homes. They're doing this not because they're making money
Yeah.
or getting attention or becoming famous or any of that. They're
Right.
doing this, the pure love of for these animals and the pure like heart-centered mission. And that's one of the most inspiring things is meeting so many powerful human beings who are up against so much and who are just doing it, living their life and, going all out for this mission to, you know, save these beautiful beings. So kudos to all these people that are out there on the front lines, on the ground, dust in their face, swords in their hands, out in the heat, the cold, the
Yeah.
missions in the middle of nowhere. They're like frontline heroes, basically, and they deserve to be supported in any way they can. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's not
Mm.
an easy work, and it's not e- exciting in the way that you're getting, lots of encouragement from the outside world. It costs a lot. It's definitely a harder way of life. But I think that most people who have kind of felt that difference that horses can bring into your life have some desire to help them in some way. So it is really cool to see these women and to be inspired by them and the things that they are doing to not only help the horses, but also help people that they come in contact with. So obviously a very beautiful aspect of the film that is highlighted. What's next for you guys, both in terms of projects and, horses?
Well, the film right now is we've been doing film festivals where, um, we've won some awards. We got to screen, which was really an amazing experience at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood at the
Oh, cool.
Golden State Film Festival, and seeing it up on that like big screen there in that historic theater was kind of was incredible
I bet
experience.
that was
And then
amazing.
we won that festival. We got the best grand prize for best documentary feature film, and
Congratulations. That's awesome.
we're gonna see where it goes from here. So we've got other festivals we're waiting for, and hopefully we'll be able to get it out publicly at some point for everyone to share. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's going good. And then we're who knows what's next? It's all
Yeah, we
kind
might
Still
of
do we
working on
might
this one.
do we might
yeah.
do some screenings in a town near you or something. But yeah, the way the festival circuit works, I guess, is once it's over, then you could put it out, publicly, via YouTube or, if we get a distributor, maybe it'll show up on a streaming service or something. But until you finish the festival circuit, it cannot be made public, or else you're not really
Hmm.
eligible to be viewed in a festival because they
Hmm.
want to know that it's a original first time showing type situation. So yeah, we've done the festival circuit, but it finishes in fall basically, or like the last festival. So after fall, hopefully by early winter or it'll be somewhere out there for everybody to see. And maybe educational purposes, it'd be wonderful to get into schools.
Oh,
We don't have
yeah.
any representation or anything like that. So if there's anyone listening who's wants to help or, is an agent or a distributor or, thinks it would be good for educational purposes, we're open to all that. We're just, we just put all our heart and energy into the film, and marketing is not our
Yeah.
specialty
Yeah.
here. So
Marketing's the
Yeah.
worst.
we're doing our best, but we need help. So anyone
Yeah.
out there
Yeah.
listening, feel free to reach out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Our
definitely.
website, Instagram.
Yeah,
Yeah, and tell
exactly.
people
Yeah,
real quick
definitely.
where they can find you and connect with you guys and all those things.
Well, definitely our website, which is danceofthewild.com. And then Instagram is our other area where we're doing a lot more updates and, you know, keeping that one a lot more, flowing right now. So I would just stay, check in our website and our Instagram. And if anybody wants to set up a personal screening or has ideas about showing it or wants to help promote the film, or, we're looking for help. Obviously, we ultimately just want to get this out to as many people so we can help, bring awareness to the subject. People can fall in love with horses and, get out and to nature and have some fun. But ultimately, anybody who's out there who feels inclined to or wants to screen it or any of those things, we'd love to help you out with that.
Yeah. Amazing. Lots of opportunities to, do your part in helping horses if that's something you felt. And the film is really great. Probably next year people would be able to see it. Is that correct?
That's the
Yes.
goal. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yes.
keep an eye out for that. And just to close with, I just thank you guys for highlighting this issue, for spending your time and energy to talk about this, both the Mustangs and then just the incredible value that they have in our world today. As we've kind of mentioned, they are often thrown away like trash. There's a lot of them. They're easy to acquire. So a lot of times people don't value them in that way. They are more difficult to train. So they're not always high value animals in that way because they are a little more sensitive and take people acquiring that trust and building partnerships, which isn't always something that happens in the horse world. But just for people to know, like, whether you're riding Mustangs or not, there's this innate and intrinsic value in the ability that they have to help the people that they come in contact with, and something that they give very freely if you're open to it, which I think you guys probably both experience. So thank you so much for bringing it to light, for sharing the visuals and even, the spirit of these experiences that are happening, because that is one really good thing about movies, which I didn't mean to bash on you guys earlier, but
That's
you are able to take people into this different world, and that really is a gift for people to be able to, see this without driving 2 hours on a dirt road through a dry lake bed, maybe or
yeah.
maybe not finding the place, but to enter that world and see that there are these beautiful sacred places where these animals are living and helping people and being cared for and protected.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you for everything you're doing. And yeah, it's been such an honor to be on your
Yeah.
podcast.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.